So here I'm again in the Helsinki Central Park. The video was filmed yesterday afternoon, finish time on July the 17th, 2019. I walked, according to my estimate, something between 5 and 10 kilometers. From the center of Helsinki until the suburb of Pirkkola, which is in northern Helsinki. So most of my walk was in the Helsinki Central Park. I remember passing one lady with her shaggy furred or long furred dog. Fortunately, the lady was kind enough to restrain her dog, and the dog did not bark at me, but looked at me curiously or perhaps even suspiciously. Nevertheless, it was nice overall, even though I couldn't take this walk in total solitude, as had been my dream. The weather was simply too nice yesterday in Helsinki for me to be able to have that privilege. Then again, if it had been several or many degrees colder, then hardly would I have ventured outside for such a long walk. Unless, of course, I had had the proper clothing with a raincoat, rain trousers, and then rain boots or rubber boots, sorry. Yes, I was trying to find an alternate way to get to Pirkkola. The problem was that at some point then I got disoriented and then I backtracked. So taking an additional, I must have then taken an additional walk back and forth of at least 1.5 to 2 kilometers, difficult to estimate. But anyway, for those who are experienced hikers, joggers, runners, and bikers, the Helsinki Central Park offers plenty of exercise opportunities. And then, of course, those who are cross-country skiing enthusiasts, in most winters, at least in the northernmost parts of Helsinki Central Park, there are some or several weeks at least of good cross-country skiing weather, although increasingly Finland has had, since the late 1980s, winters when either for much or most of the time the weather has been clearly above normal in terms of its mildness, and then winters that have included major periods of thaw when the the surface snow has melted to a significant extent, and then temperatures have been for several or even many days above zero in the daytime. Well, needless to say, I'm not a cross-country skiing enthusiast, although in some people's opinion, including some Canadians' opinion, all Finns should love winter sports. I don't especially love doing them because I'm not that skilled and I don't like the frosty or snowy winter anymore. But of course, those who like it are free to do so. So as you can notice, the sunshine sometimes was rather bright. Fortunately, the forests were thick enough in most places for me not to have to blink my eyes or squint my eyes, let alone wear sunglasses. Even though I'm an amateur in such matters, I can easily see those parts of the forest which have been either clear cut or selectively cut earlier, and then those parts which have been left more in a primeval condition, although not in a totally primeval one. Totally primeval forests are rare to find in Finland, and in southern Finland especially, they are almost non-existent except in certain parts of the several national parks and the nature, so-called nature parks, which then have the entry permit requirement, I believe, while in order to enter the national parks, you just have to report, especially if there are major ones. Well, you can just enter them, or then if you want to enter through an official point, you may have to pay a fee, especially if you want to have a guided tour of those parks, although that may differ from one park to another. Finland is one of the countries in the world and in Europe with so-called everyman's or every person's rights. In other words, it's legal to hike, run, jog, bike, and in the wintertime ski through, for example, forests. You can pick berries and mushrooms and camp in the forests, but normally you can't make an open fire bonfire except in a formal and in an official campsite due to the risk of forest fires, especially in the summertime. Of course, you can't disturb the regular or summertime residents, because if you do, then at the very least, you will be fined. At worst, you may be given even a suspended prison sentence. Suspended if you have no previous criminal record and if you have not hurt anyone and you haven't had the intention of hurting anyone physically, let alone killing anyone. But if you have caused emotional distress, and especially if you have caused damage to the regular residents or summertime residents' property, then you are liable to pay a fee. Yes, in Canada, I assume that there are, to some extent, fees every person's rights. Maybe to a smaller extent than in Finland. I didn't do much hiking in Canada. I wish I would have. During the approximately 6 years when I officially lived there, although I was gone on holidays, summer holidays in Finland for almost 1 year during that time, because in the summers of 1989, 1990, 1991, and 1992, I was there. In 1989, approximately for 2.5 months. Then in 1990, also approximately 2.5 months. In 1991, for about 2 months. And then in 1992, for 3.5 months. Okay. So in this video portion, I continue my walking through this slightly hilly terrain and forested terrain maybe the next video will feature then the odyssey which I took, the unnecessary loop which I took back towards the suburb of Pasila. The good thing was that I did not get badly lost. Unfortunately, I had plenty of experience of walking in the Helsinki Central Park before to approximately find my way. I simply had never followed this alternate route before. Almost always, or just about always before, I had followed the main trail in the Helsinki Central Park, except that I had then decided to bypass the Maunula cremation cemetery on the south side and then on the west side in order to be able to walk over the Pirkkola road in northern Helsinki on that light traffic bridge made mostly of iron or steel but with wooden planks. And there is a warning sign just before the bridge. The bridge is at times slippery, and of course that's a worthy warning sign, especially for the winter time, and then to some extent also in the autumn, when there are often rainy days, sometimes in the late summer, sometimes also in the spring. Because Finland belongs to those countries where in the early weeks of spring there is the daytime thaw with temperatures normally reaching above zero, and then in the nighttime the temperatures drop below freezing again. So this is melting and then refreezing, melting, refreezing cycle, which then is quite challenging for many motor vehicles drivers, and then also many hikers, let alone bikers. Okay. Here I am. Approaching anyway the end of this video. Maybe the next video will feature this odyssey which I took better. Unnecessary loop of maybe 1.5 to 2 kilometers. Okay, let's put on some light here. Now it should be, yes, almost the end of this video. Soon a friend of my father and stepmother is coming to set up my new computer, so I will obviously give them or give him the piece to work on it. Yeah, often the motion is quite unsteady because for some reason I had difficulty stabilizing the tripod since I'm not a professional cameraman. Anyway, the loop was important in the sense that I saw certain portions of the Helsinki Central Park that I had not seen before. I'll continue this video diary later.